Hey there, internet friends. Trevor Starkey here, back home in Phoenix after a wonderful weekend in Anaheim with the PlayStation experience. It was a ton of fun. I had a great time there. It's Tuesday, so that's an episode of Trove Gaming. So let's kind of run down the games that I played at PlayStation Experience. I will go ahead and direct you over to the blog post that kind of accompanies this video. It'll be in the description below, where I kind of went into a little bit more game-by-game impressions, but we'll just kind of do a quick pass here of everything I played at PSX. I fortunately had played some of the bigger games like Detroit Become Human and Far Cry 5 at earlier events this year, so I didn't really have kind of a need to hop into those understandably long lines, and it gave me a chance to kind of really focus on a lot of the smaller stuff, a lot of the more indie kind of niche games that caught my eye around the floor. I ended up playing, I think, a dozen games, which is, if I am not mistaken, the most I've played at any PlayStation experience, and it's certainly not like, the majority of the games that were there, but, it was quite a bit, and, I never really need to dive into Call of Duty World War II multiplayer or Uncharted 4 multiplayer at events like this, but there were also certainly a ton of other indie games that I missed that I know other people have been out there singing their praises, but I just couldn't get to everything. So here are the games that I played at PSX. Some of them I already talked to if you've been following along with these vlogs the last few days, but I'm just going to kind of run through all of them again anyway. Up first, I played a game called Donut County. It had a very interesting and humorous reveal trailer or showcase trailer in the PlayStation Experience presentation on Friday night, and so come Saturday morning after walking around the floor, I saw it and I was like, you know what, I want to go check out that game, see what that's like. And it was very nice and kind of a peaceful, enjoyable game as you just kind of like fall into a trance, sucking everything into the donuts or the big giant holes of the game that you kind of move around and control. Fun, lovely sense of humor. I look forward to kind of diving into it more when it comes out eventually. Up next was an appointment I had for Shadow of the Colossus, and I don't have much love for the Team Eco kind of control scheme and ragdoll physics, so as I touched on in my last Guardian review at the beginning of this year, those games I just don't think are for me. A lot of people have been talking about Shadow of the Colossus, this remake of it, kind of getting a new revised control scheme. I didn't see it here. It still felt kind of clumsy as all hell, and yeah, I just didn't really enjoy it. So this could be my my last kind of time sitting with the game for a while. It definitely looks better, looks prettier. It's definitely getting the visual upgrade, but if gameplay doesn't improve, I'm not going to waste my time with it. Then I went over to my other appointment on Saturday, which was a new VR title that was announced called Firewall Zero Hour. And this is basically VR Rainbow Six Siege. It was a 4v4 match where I was on the defending team and we were protecting a laptop while the attacking team was trying to get by us and hack the laptop. It was a fun little strategic shooter. We were in a small little villa kind of thing, so by the second of the 4 rounds we played, me and my teammates were kind of calling out like, oh, we see a guy in the stairwell, or here's a guy in the kitchen who just shot me, and kind of really coordinating. We ended up winning 3 of the 4 matches, and yeah, it left me, if nothing else, wanting to play Rainbow Six Siege with maybe a regular crew or something like that. I think one of the big hurdles of this demo was, and I imagine it's because they're trying to cut down on motion sickness, but the movement is very slow. It's not, fast-paced action shooter. It is like slow, methodic, kind of creeping downstairs or creeping through a hallway or something like that. Even if you want to run, you're not going too fast. So it kind of lends itself to being a little bit of a slower experience overall. Lastly, on Saturday, I played Guacamelee II, which is a sequel to one of my favorite Metroidvanias, Guacamelee. I love its art style, I love its sense of humor, and Guacamelee II has that, at least in what I've seen here, and throws in a insane, frenetic 4-player co-op mode. It's not something I ever anticipate I'll actually be playing, on my own. I will most likely be playing through this game as a single-player experience. But the 4-player co-op that I played here at PSX was just crazy. You had all 4 characters kind of running around, fighting or doing all the platforming, and the first person who kind of completes the screen and moves on to the next one carries everybody else along with you. If you die, you turn into kind of a floating orb that somebody else has to punch to revive you. If all the characters die, you restart that screen pretty quickly. And yeah, it was just a ton of insanity and fun. And I, on like pretty much every screen, lost track of which one I was moving through, especially when you get into kind of using the chicken mechanic from the first game, where you can kind of R1 or L1 or something like that and turn into a chicken and kind of peck away or slip into smaller crevices and stuff. When you have 4 chickens running around the screen, or 2 chickens and 2 humans, or swapping in between all that, it just becomes overwhelmingly chaotic in I think some of the best ways possible. So it's a ton of fun. I'm very glad, though, that I will most likely not be experiencing the game in that way. So now we move on to Sunday, and a lot of these games I haven't really talked about yet. So up first we had At Sundown, which is a top-down local multiplayer shooter, where the catch is that none of the characters are visible until they make a sound, until they shoot a weapon, or until they slash a sword or something like that. They might move into kind of a light on the map where they're also visible there, but a lot of this game is you're wandering around trying to guess that you're in the vicinity of an opponent, and if you shoot, you're either going to kill them or you're going to make everybody else aware to where you are. And so it's definitely kind of a risk and reward. It's Arena Gods or Battle Slots 2025 mixed with something like Screen Cheat, and it was really cool. I immediately kind of recommended it over to Andy and my friends over at Kind of Funny as a potential party mode game for them to sit down and play, because I think it's right up their alley. Up next, we have Pig Eat Ball, which was the game I've talked about it a little bit, I think, and it was my biggest surprise and potentially my game of the show, at least when people were asking me, hey, what did you see this weekend? What really stood out to you? A lot of people were talking about Detroit, if they'd played that, or Far Cry or something like that. Because I'd already played those games, I don't consider them as my games of the show, and so instead it is something like this Pig Eat Ball, which is a throwback to old school arcade style kind of game, and the premise very much that they were pitching was, what if Pac-Man got fatter as he ate every pellet, and what if that mechanic kind of impedes his ability to move through a level at some point, so he has to puke up those balls or those pellets in order to kind of shrink back down. So you have this game where you're playing as a pig and you have to eat every tennis ball in the level, but you might not be able to access some until you kind of puke up some balls and then kind of move into the new area and then eat those balls back. And so if you're eating barfed up balls, you might get sick from them, and then you might uncontrollably vomit some more balls up. So it's a very, a little gross. It's all, cartoony animation style, so it's not, terribly disgusting that you're looking at. But it's a wonderfully quirky approach to this old school, level design arcade style. So I'm looking forward to seeing where this game goes. You play through the levels, and you're kind of ranked on how quickly it took you to get through the level, and so you get it has a very similar 3-star system as you see in a lot of games. So if you get through the level, you're going to get a bronze star. But if you want to get the gold star or whatever, the gold medal, you have to go through it in a certain amount of time. So I look forward to maybe trying to get a whole bunch of gold medals in that game and play through it and just kind of enjoy the old school arcade style levels of a game like that. Up next, after years and years of seeing them at shows, and seeing my name get confused with them online, I finally sat down with Trove, Trove has finally played Trove. Specifically here, I was playing Trove Adventures. The demo that they had on hand had you playing as a very, very overpowered character compared to the world around you, so I don't quite know what the, moment-to-moment gameplay of this is. I don't know what the mix of crafting versus combat is. I don't know how level progression necessarily works, but for, a few minutes I hopped in, enjoyed this very Minecraft-inspired design, and just kind of shooting, very blocky hornets or skeletons or stuff like that, and yeah, I had a little bit of fun with it. So Trove has finally played Trove. Moving on, I had another VR experience, Farpoint Versus expansion. I hopped in. This seems to be, I haven't played Farpoint yet, but this seems to be kind of a 1v1 multiplayer expansion to the game. I played both this and the Firewall with the aim controller, and it was my first time kind of experiencing that controller. It's very, intuitive in how it plays. It maybe takes a little bit of getting used to in terms of where all the buttons are and how everything gets mapped, and I think just kind of the design of it also left me a little, unclear as to where I was actually aiming versus, I wasn't actually aiming down sights or anything, so maybe I was misjudging where I was actually shooting versus where I thought I was shooting or something like that throughout, but it was a fun little controller. This demo was fun, another kind of combat multiplayer shooter experience. In addition to kind of your loadout of a couple of weapons, you can kind of go around the arenas, the game arena, and kind of sit in a spawn point and bring in basically AI allies for you. So you're kind of sitting there with a limited number of resources, and you can kind of plop down on a spawn point and get maybe a little swarm of spiders that will kind of track down your opponent, and they'll just kind of pester him. Or you can maybe use more resources and kind of call in a ATST-esque mech that will shoot rockets at your opponent. You're limited in your resources, so you can't just kind of go to all the spawn points and just get a whole army going after your opponent. But it's fun. I had a great time kind of figuring out which combinations I liked, which combinations worked well with maybe my loadout that was working. So I had fun with it. It's another one. I ended up playing a couple matches with the person who kind of landed in the same time slot as me, and I ended up winning, so that was nice. That's always, yay, winning. Yeah, it was fun. It was kind of a good mix of winning with my ally attackers, the people I was spawning, or the mechs, or the spiders, or whatever, as well as using them to flush out the enemy, and me getting the kills just by my own with my own weapons. So really fun, kind of interesting, almost a mix between a first-person shooter and an RTS strategy kind of game, just in using that resource management. So definitely recommend it, especially if you're in the VR realm as well. Up next, we have a game called Trocker. I think that's how you pronounce it. This game really messed with my head. It's another old-school inspired twin-stick arcade shooter, but the game is split in two distinct halves. There's basically a line down the middle, and on the left-hand side, I think this is left-hand side for you. It's my right hand, but I'm pretty sure with the reverse. On the left-hand side, you've got basically a shooter a la Space Invaders, where you've got a ship that is shooting enemies that are going to come down at you, and that's how you rack up points. And then over on the right-hand side, you're controlling a ship that is moving around in a more 3D space, and going kind of landing, collecting parts and point modifiers and combo modifiers that boost the points that you actually get from doing the shooting on this axis. Trying to manage both things and make sure that this one who's having to dodge missiles and stuff like that and doesn't die, it was hurting my head, and if I honestly couldn't. I think I've described kind of the core mechanics and how you're scoring points and stuff, but I was basically just at the whim of the developer who was standing there next to me, kind of giving me pointers and telling me what to do, and trying to help me out there. I, at some point, ended up getting like 100,000 points in one shot because I was using the risk-reward system that he had in place. I didn't even realize I was doing it, so it was very like hurting my head. So I don't expect this will be something I ever really dive back into, but if you are a fan of those kind of Housemarque-esque twin-stick shooter games, but you're looking for something that kind of has that extra layer of challenge of really having to distinguish very clearly between your left and right brains and the left hand and right hand sides of what you're doing, this is definitely the game for you as you try and chase those leaderboards. Up next is a game called The Gardens Between. First caught my attention because it's got a nice little serene puzzle design in this in its game and very nice art style. The way it incorporated the PlayStation Experience's QR code reward system was the most innovative of anything I've seen in the years that they've been doing this at PSX. Most games, you can go up and just kind of scan your phone or scan your badge at a booth or something like that, and it'll give you like, an avatar or a theme or something like that. Other games will make you sit down and play the demo first, and they'll basically do that because they'll lock the thing you have to scan with a staffer who won't let you scan it until after you've already played the game. Gardens Between took it one step further. They locked the code within the game, and it comes out in like a mid-demo puzzle. Once you solve the puzzle, the QR code came up on like a TV within the monitor that we were playing the game on. So it was really interesting in how they incorporated that in. I thought it was very clever and very cool. And then just on top of that, the level and puzzle design was interesting. You basically control time in this game as you're kind of watching a couple kids walk around kind of a series of islands that all kind of have very... it's a game built around memory is kind of one of the things they used as a selling point. A surreal memory puzzle adventure, something like that. And so you might have your characters walking around, and they they might come across a very Nintendo-looking console, and they might have to use. You basically can interact with other things that you can move forward and backward in time. So you might have to move, like for that puzzle in particular, it was like, okay, I've got to set the lamp that collects like the light orb that I use to end the level. I've got to set the lamp in this thing that, as I move forward in time, hops into the TV in the 8-bit-esque Mario level design thing. So I've got to do that, get the lamp into the TV, and then I've got to have the other character kind of push back on the controller button or something, and so he moves like a bird that hops back over there and leaves the light, and now I can take the lamp, move it back out, it will collect the light, and then I can get the lamp out of the TV, grab the lamp, and then walk through and finish the level. Interesting, weird little, tough to explain puzzling mechanics, but pretty straightforward once you kind of get a feel for it. And yeah, it's an interesting little kind of look at puzzles, and I'm interested to see where maybe the story goes with how these characters are related, and really get kind of that scope from. There wasn't much of the story here behind this game outside of like, okay, there's some like board gamey kind of things that they're playing with memory, and now they're playing with video games, and now they're playing with tools, and so interesting to see where that goes. And I look forward to looking to playing that puzzle game in the future. I played a game called Russian Subway Dogs on the only Vita I found on the show floor. This game is coming to PlayStation 4 and Vita, and it's an interesting little kind of game where you're playing a dog who wanders through Russian subways. You bark at Russians as they get off the trains, and they'll, in their panic, throw their food up in the air, which you can use to kind of increase your score, as well as prolong your life using the hunger meter in the game. But not all Russians have food. Some might have vodka, which will explode on contact with the ground, which will hurt you. But you can also use it to hurt other dogs who are going to try and steal the food that you're trying to steal from these people. So interesting little kind of, again, quirky, funny, just game premise. I'm curious as to, I played an endless mode of the game where you're just trying to get as many points as you can before time runs out, before you die, effectively. And I was left kind of very curious as to what the story mode of this game might entail. So, Russian Subway Dogs coming to PS4 and Vita at some point. Then lastly, while the greater Destiny 2 community was playing laser tag all weekend, I hopped into the more controlled PlayStation experience version of the Curse of Osiris Crucible. I hadn't played Crucible and Curse of Osiris before I left, so I was playing on a new map here. And I actually did pretty good. I held my own and even kind of carried my team a little bit. Basically, all the characters here had a pretty unique or pretty same loadout, kind of customized for the purposes of this demo. And yeah, typically I'm not that great at Crucible. Typically I'm getting my butt kicked. I might have a good round here or there, but here with whoever was crazy enough to play Destiny 2 near the end of day 2 of PSX. I managed to have more kills than like the rest of my team combined, and basically helped carry that team to victory. So that was a nice little way to end my PlayStation experience. So those are the games I played at PlayStation Experience this weekend. Some of them, like Destiny, I'm already obviously playing Destiny. A lot of them, though, I am looking forward to seeing kind of where they come and go from here. So smaller games that, they're not the big Detroit and the Farpoint and the Dreams, but I think these are all definitely games worth keeping an eye out on if they sound appealing to you. So let me know what your thoughts are on any of these titles in the comments below. As always, I've been your host, Trevor Starkey from TrevorTrove.com. Like I said, I encourage you to go read kind of the full game-by-game breakdown that I give over at TrevorTrove.com at the link in the description below. You can follow me at SnarkyStarkey on Twitter, and as always, from here at the Trove, treasure your friends.